All right, this one might come as a surprise to you. Did you hear this week California Governor Gavin Newsom announced that he's ready to crack down on the southern border with Mexico and California? He's sending California National Guard troops down to secure the border. Well, it's not what you think. He's really trying to cover up his massive failure on another big concerning issue. Coming up, I'll tell you what's really going on and how we're fighting to expose Gavin Newsom's failures. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California. And if you were as surprised as I was this week with news coverage of Gavin Newsom announcing a major crackdown at the southern border, well, you got to really listen to this video because we've figured out what his real scheme is, his scam is on this big announcement. So let me share for you first his announcement about his border crackdown. And when you hear it at first, you're thinking, wow, this is a good thing. I'm so glad. Even conservative Republicans who've been calling for a wall at the southern border and sending National Guard troops down to secure it, they may say, wow, finally something that Governor Gavin Newsom's doing that I can actually agree with. No. It's a scam, and we'll explain why. But first, let's listen to his announcement. Here is his Twitter video. It's a nice little highly produced piece that he's got here. Let me make sure that the audio is working and go.
California is cracking down. We're cracking down on illegal drugs being smuggled into our state.
Look at all those troops.
In 2023 so far, 93% of fentanyl seizures in our state have occurred at legal crossing points or interior vehicle checkpoints, which is where our work is being targeted.
By the way, when he says 93% of the drugs coming across the border, the seizures, it's far more, Gavin, far more, because we really aren't checking but a fraction of the cars and the vehicles coming across. By the way, look at that Homeland Security. They're the ones really doing the work. $594% increase in fentanyl seized in the state.
Fentanyl is putting in the work to address this crisis.
Oh, California is really putting in the work to address the crisis. Well, fentanyl deaths have increased by over 160% in just the last 24 months alone. Do you know that fentanyl drug overdoses are now the leading cause of death amongst people 45 years old and younger? You know, on COVID-19, people said, "Oh, it's a real killer. It's going to be the leading cause of death." It was never. But here you've got a real public health epidemic, a real problem, and yet nothing but platitudes, nothing but milquetoast. And when you dig deeper into Newsom's announcement, you're going to find out why this guy's a fraud, why this is nothing but showboating. This is grandstanding of the worst kind. The reason why Newsom is announcing this, quote, crackdown at the border and sending National Guard troops down is that he and his Democrat thugs in Sacramento are starting to feel some heat. This legislative session, California Democrat legislators voted down every substantive bill to crack down on fentanyl in this state. They don't want to deal with drug dealers. They don't want to crack down on that. They don't want to deport illegal immigrants who are dealing fentanyl. They certainly don't want to secure the border. More on that in a moment. They even had an opportunity to pass something called Alexandra's Law. Alexandra is a girl who died of a fentanyl overdose, and her father and a lot of grieving families with other victims have all come together to say we ought to pass a law telling drug dealers that if they deal drugs and someone dies, particularly if it's fentanyl, that they may be charged with a homicide, with murder. California Democrats voted that down. They voted down a bill even to put Narcan in schools, which would be an antidote to prevent kids from dying. By the way, overdoses amongst teenagers with fentanyl has gone up by 1,100%. 1,100% in the last 12 months alone. This is a killer. Worse than COVID, but not, we're not getting the sort of attention from the liberal media or politicians like Newsom. In fact, they are pushing back on any common sense reforms. So Newsom did this little video this week because earlier in the week, grieving families got together and held him to task, called him out, called out the legislators, and even announced that because the Democrats rejected common sense fentanyl legislation, that they feel compelled to file a ballot measure, collect signatures, and put their ideas on the ballot. Here's a story covering that.
Two fathers who lost their children to fentanyl poisoning, hoping to turn their heartbreak into change.
We'd like to file this ballot initiative.
Okay. Matt Capilouto lost his daughter Alexandra in 2019, and Chris Didier lost his son Zach in 2020. Their photos and others lining the sidewalk outside of the California Attorney General's office Tuesday. They handed forms into the office to launch the proposed ballot initiative process to crack down on fentanyl dealers and get voters involved.
Now, mind you, they should not have to do this. These are two grieving fathers, along with other grieving families of countless other victims. They should not have to collect a single signature to do the right thing. That should be Gavin Newsom. It should be the legislators, and shame on them for not acting. Remember, in California, we have Prop 47 decriminalizing drug crimes. That's why the street price of drugs in California is lower than any other state in the nation. We make it easy for the gangbangers and the cartels to profit in our state because we don't punish them. We don't go after them. Another survey out, study showed that 70% of fentanyl dealers arrested in San Francisco are illegal immigrants. So because we're a sanctuary state, we also provide sanctuary to the drug dealers, the fentanyl dealers. More on that.
Together, supporting this ballot initiative, we can bring hope to stop the flow of this deadly drug, as well as the demand.
The proposal, known as Alexandra's Law, would give fentanyl dealers the same notice those convicted of drunk driving get in court. Do it again, and you could face murder charges. It also sets a 10 to 12-year prison sentence for dealers whose drugs end up killing someone.
Passing this law is the right thing to do.
Daughter of the late rapper DMX was there to support. She lost her father to a drug overdose and other relatives to fentanyl poisoning.
I would tell them that I'm fighting to make a change in honor of them.
With less than 2 weeks left in the legislative session, California Republicans in the state assembly attempted to flex the rules to try to get lawmakers to vote on ACA 12. This would be a constitutional amendment that adds Alexandra's Law to the California Constitution, and it would ultimately be up to voters. Here's what happened.
I move to suspend the rules with.
Republicans tried to rush the measure to the floor. Then Democratic Majority Leader Assemblyman Isaac Bryan made a few notes against
the patron saint of gangbangers and drug dealers. Yep, all the Democrats rushing to defend. Oh, we can't have harsher penalties on drug dealers. No, stop. And look what he's about to say. More gaslighting and, of course, very almost no challenging by the media.
The move.
Madam Speaker, isn't it true that there are several bills related to the sale, distribution, accountability, and network around fentanyl still to be dealt with on this floor by September 14th? And
we're going to deal with it. You know what the bills are? Creating a task force to study the issue. Oh boy, I wish they had done that during COVID-19. They probably wouldn't have made big mistakes on all their onerous, unconstitutional mandates. No, all they're doing is passing bills studying the issue. You don't need to study kids dying at an alarming rate from fentanyl dealt by druggies, sir, that you and the governor are protecting. Alexandra's Law is a no-nonsense, common sense approach. It shouldn't even be a question. It should be passed already. So Newsom knows that, well, golly, maybe some people will realize that I'm on the side of the drug dealers, so let me showboat. So he posts that Twitter video saying he's going to crack down with National Guard troops. He even says he's going to double the number of National Guard troops. Here's the favorable media. Here's the Union Tribune, San Diego. Newsom ramps up National Guard at ports of entry to combat fentanyl drug trafficking at the border. It's not just the Union Tribune. Here's the coverage from across the state. KCRA in the Sacramento area. Newsom to deploy 50% more Cal Guard members to the border to combat fentanyl crisis. CBS National. Newsom sending additional California National Guard troops to border to stop illegal importation. Look at this. LA Times. Newsom beefs up Cal Guard at border to stem flow of fentanyl. Those are tough headlines, right? You think he's doing something. Wow, impressive. Oh, Gavin's on the job. Let me actually tell you what he is specifically doing. And you get to decide whether this constitutes beefing up or cracking down. Do you know how many California National Guard members we have at the border right now? 40. We have 40, which means that on any given day or any given shift, maybe 10 of them are actually working with Border Patrol. Now, the federal government Border Patrol is the one responsible for stopping the flow of drugs across the border, both people and illegal items, drugs. Border Patrol is the law enforcement agency. But as you know, California Democrats and Joe Biden, they don't want Border Patrol to do their job. They have done everything they possibly can to gut any powers to control the flow of drugs or people across the border because they like the drugs, they like the voters that come in across the southern border. And so the first thing is if Newsom wanted to crack down on the flow of drugs, he would call out the Biden administration for the lax border policies, but he's not. He would stop the sanctuary state policy, but he's not. He would repeal Prop 47 so we can go after drug dealers, but he's not. He would go and talk about how we need to reform the asylum laws so that we don't have a flow of massive hordes of people gaming the system to get in, but he is not. Those are all things that would actually work to help Border Patrol do their jobs. Border Patrol does not even have the capacity anymore to deal with the drug tunnels, the cartels, the coyotes. The massive drug flow is unabated because Border Patrol barely can keep up with the flow of illegal immigrants coming across the border because of Gavin Newsom, because of Joe Biden. That's the truth. But the media makes it appear as though, oh, Newsom is cracking down. But back to those 40 Cal Guard members that are currently down there. 40 of them, which means that maybe 10 are working at any given time. You know how many miles the border is? California's border with Mexico is 165 miles long. You have to deal with shifts. And so we're talking about 10 people covering 165 miles. Now, look at this. Newsom to deploy 50% more Cal Guard members. Do you know what that equates to? A grand total of 20 people, 20 staffers are sent to the border. So that works out to be about 5, maybe 6, but 5 staffers on every shift. 5 additional staffers for 165 miles. Look, you could probably light off a nuclear bomb there and some of them may not notice. But tunnels and coyotes coming across 24 hours a day, it doesn't have any impact whatsoever. But look at all this glowing coverage that California's liberal media gives Gavin Newsom. Oh, they're there to carry his water. The voters of California will now assume that Newsom is cracking down on drugs. He's going to secure the southern border. Well, look at what he's doing. He's doubling the number of National Guard troops. But none of these media outlets give you the truth. This is all for show. Absolutely for show. Absolutely irrelevant. But they're going to prop him up on the issue because they know that, well, grieving families calling for immediate action and calling him out for his failure to deal with the issue, they actually may resonate with undecided voters. Not even the national media is calling Newsom out on this. And that's unfortunate because Newsom probably will end up being the Democrat presidential nominee in 2024. We covered that in previous updates for you. And so we need your help to expose Gavin Newsom. Go to the website, exposegavinnewsom.com. Exposegavinnewsom.com. Here it is. We are building a dirt file, an opposition research file on Gavin Newsom. In order for us to call him out, to do the research like we did on how many National Guard troops were actually there before his big beefing up, we need our research staff. We need to deploy them. We need to fund them. So contribute at exposegavinnewsom.com, exposegavinnewsom.com. Help us get the word out. And of course, we got to deal with fentanyl. And so at reformcalifornia.org, you will get additional information on our news coverage on the fentanyl drug crisis in California, as well as endorsements for candidates who will go up and make Alexandra's law the law of the state of California and will help crack down on crime and the drug epidemic that we see every day in our state. Let's take action. Join the fight. ReformCalifornia.org, exposegavinnewsom.com. Also, check out this video on YouTube. Share it. Like our page, follow this page so that we can continue to promote these videos and get it out to friends and family. Share the video with your friends and family on your social media platforms. Help us break through that censorship of liberal media by sharing, liking, and subscribing to our information and our news channels. Until next time, it's Carl DeMaio with Reform California. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.